Let's talk about Ohio State a little bit here. Where do things stand in Columbus, Ohio? I think a lot of us saw that bowl game, Missouri and Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, and saw Ohio State not score a touchdown and saw Missouri look good and scoring 14 points. And I mean, good's maybe a stretch there. But there's a lot of people now that were waiting to say things about Ryan Day that have more ammunition to say them. Most notably, the born on third base thing that people love to say about Ryan Day. So let's frame this correctly, just so we're on the same page here. In that bowl game, Ohio State, for the majority of the game, played with their third-string quarterback, played without Marvin Harrison Jr., and they had a defense that allowed 14 points against a Missouri offense that typically scores in the 30s. That's not me telling you that Ohio State has excuses, but I am saying if we want to use the proper context around a game like this for Ryan Day, I think we probably would be wise to do that. Like Ohio State with full strength, heck, maybe even with Devin Brown in the game, I think they have a better chance to win that football game. But a lot of people now saying, hey, Ryan Day, is he the right guy in Columbus? Losing to your 6 Bulls, keeps losing to Michigan. Like, are we sure he's the right guy? Some people even shouting loudly he's not the right guy. I think given the results of this year, in spite of the results of this year rather, I think there was a lot of validation for Ryan Day having a pretty good conversation against that born on third base narrative. The reason why, he changed his formula and still got solid results. Now, I understand the results are still not up to par of what you expect in Columbus, Ohio, because the expectations are win the Big Ten, beat Michigan, and compete for national titles. They didn't do that this year. But quite frankly, they could have been, I think, substantially worse with what they didn't have at quarterback. And that's not me throwing too much shade at Kyle McCord. I just think it's kind of the fact of the matter. Ohio State, the last couple of years, has had a first-round draft pick playing quarterback for you. That was not the case with Kyle McCord. This was not an offense that was going to score in the 40s, as Ohio State has been accustomed to doing. Ryan Day realizes that and has built this thing to where they were able to win with defense. They allowed 11 points a game this year. Y'all, that's good for second in the country. Now, I understand all this is kind of a moot point because they didn't beat Michigan, but I think we need to give a little bit of an eye to how this Ohio State team was built. A lot of people saying, he's just living off of what Urban Meyer did at Ohio State. He's living off the Ohio State brand. Y'all, this was not an Urban Meyer kind of team. The way that this team played game control, ran the football, played great defense, and that's not saying Urban Meyer's teams didn't have great defense, but this was a defensive-led football team. Like, this was a Ryan Day coaching job here. And you saw the results be what they were. And to be honest, the Michigan game, if they're able to get in the end zone on that final drive, maybe we have a different discussion this morning. Heck, last year, if they make that field goal against Georgia, we're talking about Ryan Day with a national championship before his name. Like, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. Just because Ryan Day hasn't gotten over the hump at this point in his career and won a national title does not mean he's not a great head coach. Kirby Smart was dealing with the same thing at Georgia for a while there. People saying, he hasn't beat Saban. They haven't won a national title. Is he really the guy? Just because the standards are sky high and you haven't achieved them yet doesn't mean you're not still building the stairs towards that. Because I think that's what they've done here. They're still recruiting really well, and they're going after their guy in the portal right now, it sounds like, with Will Howard taking a visit to Columbus, Ohio. It sounds like in the very near future. That's where I want to settle in here. My big takeaway from the Cotton Bowl wasn't that Ryan Day can't be the guy, wasn't that Ohio State has drastic improvements they have to make on the defensive side of the football. My big takeaway was, hey, they got to go and get a portal quarterback. Like, I love Devin Brown. I think he could eventually develop into a really good quarterback for Ohio State. But in small action against Missouri, I didn't feel overwhelmingly confident in him being the guy for you next year. And I get that. That's bowl syndrome, so I want to guard against that. But I'm just saying, I think there was more to be desired from his performance in, very, very small amount of minutes. Then you saw Lincoln Kienholz, another guy who could develop and be great. But with the standard being as high as it is, I think you got to go get someone who's proven and someone who has a real amount of production behind them, who's not going to be a risk for you. Because as good as Devin Brown is, as good as Lincoln Kienholz can be, they're a risk. And with Ryan Day, as much murmurs as have been around Ohio State if they don't beat Michigan next year, I'm not here to tell you there wouldn't be a a pretty strong push from folks in Columbus to say, hey, we need somebody new. Now, my question would be, who would you go get? Who is the guy that's going to be better for you than Ryan Day, who is one of the best winning percentages in college football right now? That's my question. But again, the point stands. If they don't beat Michigan next year, there will be a lot of angry people. And that's fair. It's what it is at Ohio State. You know what it is. That's where the standard is. But going back to Will Howard, man, I think this will make all the sense in the world. I really do. And he's visited Miami. He's visited USC. We actually made a prediction last week. We changed our prediction from USC to Ohio State for Will Howard because there was starting to be some smoke. And if Will Howard was going to go to Miami or go to USC, would that not already be a done deal? Would the dominoes not have already fell in a certain way to where he's like, I need my spot, I'm going to go to one of those schools? I think Ohio State makes a ton of sense because if you're Will Howard, you want to set yourself up for success at the next level. And the structure in place at Ohio State is one that has produced multiple first-round picks at the quarterback position, multiple Heisman Trophy finalists. If I'm Will Howard, I bet on myself. I go to Columbus, Ohio. I play under Ryan Day, who's had several offenses that score 40 points a game. And I say, okay, I'm committing to this structure. I'm going to compete. I'm going to win the job. I'm going to be the guy, and I'm going to have those results that this structure has produced before. Makes a ton of sense. Now for Ohio State, going back to what I was just saying about Ryan Day, like I think you need Will Howard to feel good about your chances to beat Michigan going forward. I think he gives you, like I just said, proven production. He's a winner. He's got a Big 12 title to his name. There's all that's in play. But even more so, maybe not even more so, maybe on top of that, Will Howard brings a mobile element to your offense at the quarterback position. Something that Michigan's had the last couple of years that Ohio State hasn't. And if you're able to call some design quarterback runs, or if you're able to have a quarterback who can create when the play breaks down, that's something that Michigan has had with J.J. McCarthy, but Ohio State has not. And at that point in time, too, whenever you're able to ad-lib as a quarterback, you give your wide receivers more time to get open. Y'all, last time I checked, there's nothing but 4- and 5-star wide receivers in that room in Ohio State. You give them more time to get open, you're scoring a lot of points. You give yourself a chance to run the kind of offense that you're accustomed to running at Ohio State and get the results you're accustomed to having, and in that way, give yourself the best chance possible to beat Michigan. So if Will Howard goes to Ohio State, again, I think it's a win for both sides. Will Howard helps himself when it comes to his NFL stock, and Ryan Day has his quarterback to say, okay, chips fall where they may. I gave my team the very best chance to win by giving us the best quarterback possible via the portal to compete for what we want to compete for here. So we're not selling stock on Ohio State. I'm definitely not selling stock on Ryan Day. He could lose to Michigan again, and I think, would believe that Ryan Day is a great head coach because he's still figuring it out. He's still a first-time head coach, to be honest with y'all. But all that's to be said. If they land Will Howard, I think that changes the game tremendously, both metaphorically and literally with how they run their offense. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.